So I want to talk to you about spiritual bypassing. And this is spiritual bypassing occurs when somebody uses religious platitudes or Bible verses to avoid dealing with uncomfortable issues and feelings. It could be used by someone who lacks understanding of what you're dealing with, like a friend or a pastor or a spiritual leader or somebody who you tell about your difficult relationship and the person doesn't know what to say. So they use a verse or a platitude to kind of respond to you, and like they're like, okay, I'm done, I handled that. Whereas that didn't really help, but they don't really know how to deal with it. It could be used by somebody who doesn't want to be accountable for their part in a problem, so they're going to use a verse or something against you so that you'll have to do what they're saying and they can avoid being responsible. It can come from somebody who's very rigid and moralistic and has very rigid rules, and they're very black and white, or they're very legalistic that you've got to do all these things to keep God happy and you've got to follow, the letter of the law. And so it can come from that, or it could come from a place of somebody who is using to shame you so that you'll let them off the hook. So they don't want to be responsible for their own part in a relationship. So they're going to try to shame you and not have to be accountable and try to make you like you're the bad person, you're the person that's to blame for it. So it's different than spiritual abuse, because spiritual abuse is when somebody uses their position, their power, their authority that's been given to them through scripture. So like a pastor, a spouse, a parent, an elder, and they use that power and from that position to control you, okay, and to manipulate you or to demand that you do as they say. So that is abuse. This is spiritual bypassing. Think of it like this. You're over here and you're dealing with these problems. Let's say you've got a difficult marriage, or you got something that you're really struggling with, you're really worried about. You've lost a spouse, you've lost a child, you've got a child in addiction, you've got a spouse that's super dysfunctional, your marriage is very painful, you don't know what to do, your spouse is having an affair, you're not sure, and you got all this pain and you're spilling your guts and you're talking about all the things that are going on, you don't know how to handle this. And the person doesn't really know, as many people don't know how to handle that, and they'll respond with, okay, just trust God, or just keep praying, or something like, well, it takes two. So I'm going to go through all these different spiritual platitude examples of them in a minute. So that person, basically, you're over here with this big, heavy, heavy, heavy heart with all of this stuff you're struggling with, and you're desperate for some kind of help to lift you up, or help you feel better, or to give you direction. And instead, this person bypasses everything you're dealing with. You're over here with all your problems. This person zips right on by and goes over here with this, uses this Bible verse or this platitude to just go right past your pain and ignore all of that. And now over here, they're like, okay, I'm done. I've given her or him I'm given a response. I've done my spiritual duty. I patted him on the shoulder and put my hand on him and prayed for him and told him that great spiritual advice. And now I'm free. And you're walking away going, I don't feel any better. In fact, I feel worse. I feel worse about what just happened than I did before I came and talked to this person. I've had that happen to me. I'm sure you have too. So spiritual bypassing uses Bible verses to convict, spiritual explanations to avoid responsibility, morality to shame, self-righteousness to silence, generalized advice instead of empathy, and platitudes to win arguments. The purpose of all of these is to address the situation without having to deal with what the person is bringing up, whether that's a relationship or a life problem. It harms the recipient because it lacks empathy, feels condemning, judgmental, and shaming, and it shuts down further conversation. It invalidates by minimizing a person's feelings, concerns, and experiences. And invalidating is something that when you're invalidated, that's abusive. It's invalidating who you are. So here are some of the things that are said when you are being spiritually bypassed. You have to forgive. So that means be quiet. Don't say anymore. Don't talk about what it is that's bothering you. Just get over it. Move on. You have to forgive. Die to yourself. Just none of this matters. You can't be thinking about this. Don't think about your pain. Don't think about your hurt. Don't think about your fears, your worries, your life. Just die to yourself. Die to let that pain and that bitterness go. Just die to yourself. So again, invalidating. All of these things are scriptural, but they're used in a wrong way. Keep praying. The word says pray without ceasing. Just keep praying. Like you haven't been praying, like you don't pray when you're in a difficult relationship or in a problem. That's all you do. You're constantly praying. It's that you're coming to this person for support. Trust God. Yes, always, no matter what. Job, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. Always trust God, no matter what happens or is happening. But saying trust God in the midst of that, without dealing with what you're going through, is spiritually bypassing. All things work together for good. Okay, well, this can be pretty hard to hear when you're in the middle of a big loss, like a loss of a child, or loss of a job, or loss of a marriage, your spouse is cheating on you, or whatever that big painful thing is. Hearing all things work together for good is like, I'm not there yet. Okay, I'm really down here and I'm needing more than that. And that's discounting in that situation. Think positive and only talk about what is good. That's toxic positively, toxic positivity. And that's kind of like the confession stuff with only confess what is good. And you can't say anything bad or it will come into existence. And so then you can't talk about the truth. You can't talk about being sick. You can't talk about the pain. You could only talk about the positive. Well, that again is very one-sided, not scriptural, and absolutely it's not true. You're not going to make that happen by speaking the truth about what's going on. You're allowed to get advice. You're allowed to go to somebody and ask for encouragement. I mean, that's very scriptural. It's God's will. Well, we know that we do submit to God's will and that we are willing to go along with God's will. But saying that, pronouncing that on somebody, you don't know that that was God's perfect will in that person's life. If somebody murdered their child or had an affair, that wasn't God's will for that to happen. That was sin that brought that about. Somebody made a big mistake. Somebody did something really wrong and it impacted this person. The rain shines on the just and the unjust. You can't pronounce that in that person's life. It's painful to think, well, that's what God willed, to take my child away. And God willed for this person to hit my car and cause this loved one to be killed. Don't gossip. That's used in the church when like a pastor or an elder board doesn't want people to talk about what's going on in the church. Oh, can't gossip, can't speak against God's anointed. Don't say anything and don't talk about that. Well, yeah, don't gossip. Don't gossip about your spouse. Don't gossip about your parents. Don't gossip about the pastor or the elder board or anyone in the church. But speaking the truth with the right motive in the right place about what is happening is not gossip. That is very different. So watch your motive, make sure you do it in a right way, but don't let someone use that to keep you from talking. Don't assume someone's motives. If somebody's hurting you, you just don't know. Well, that means you can't use discernment about what is going on with somebody and speaking the truth. You can't say that your spouse is abusive or that somebody is abusive or that somebody is narcissistic. You can make discerning judgments. That is scriptural. You are allowed to do that. Always think the best of someone. Again, that's saying you can't acknowledge the truth, nothing bad, only nothing about the sin or the evil, which scripture tells us to call out and shine light into darkness. But we have to just think the best, especially of your spouse. Only think the best of your spouse, right? See your husband as a good man or a wife as a good woman. Well, you've got to see truth and be out of denial. And yes, see the good, don't lose the good, but you have to deal also with the other side if things are going on that are harmful. Take the log out of your eye. That's Matthew 7. And in Matthew 7, it talks about that you actually have the log, but you're trying to take the splinter out of the other person in difficult relationships. You often have the splinter or have nothing, and the other person has the log, like in abuse. Okay, like in narcissism, your reaction to that person might be part of the dynamic, but the person actually has the narcissism or has the abuse or has the abusive personality or the abuse, the addiction. And it's okay to look at your part and then honestly look at the other person's part too, because it says once you look at your part, whatever that is, you get to look at the other person. Make peace a priority. That means don't bring up anything negative, don't confront. Again, not scriptural. Sometimes peace comes after war. Sometimes the peace comes after the battle. Satan is your enemy, not your spouse or your parent or your child. This is a spiritual battle. Yes, it is. It's also a relationship. Don't forget that. Get rid of resentment right away, or the devil will get a foothold. You don't want bitterness, right? To seed of bitterness to go. Well, yes, devil can get a foothold. Don't want to have bitterness, but the devil also gets a foothold when you allow sin to go unconfronted. Okay. If you allow somebody to continue to do those things and cause more and more harm and get further and further involved and entrenched, and there's more damage, you don't think the devil's getting a foothold? Give it to God always. Okay. But doesn't mean you don't get to deal with it in life at the same time. You still need to do your part. But whatever that is, could be confronting, could be dealing with it, could be looking for resources if you don't have finances. It could be making a decision, could be getting counseling, could be whatever it is. Don't trust your feelings only, but your feelings give you a lot of information. They are information about what's going on and how you're affected. So don't make decisions based only on your feelings. And yeah, you can't always trust your feelings, but you do need to pay attention to your feelings. And they are one part of the information that you have to make decisions and to know what is going on. Forgive or God won't forgive you. Definitely good for the legalistic people. If you don't forgive me, God won't forgive you. So then all of a sudden you have fear of damnation, fear of hell, and you've got to quickly run to forgiveness. And what does that mean? That means move on. And that is not scriptural. You don't have to move on. There's still all kinds of things. I just did another video, don't know if it's up before or after this one, on using forgiveness manipulatively. That's manipulative. Have more faith. If you have enough faith, you can move mountains. So why can't you move this? Why can't you move this relationship or get this job? Because just because you have faith does not mean that everything is going to go perfect. Doesn't mean that people are going to make choices to change. Jesus is your husband. Okay. Oh, that was said to me early in my marriage, and that was so shaming and so painful when I spoke up. Just even a couple years into my marriage at a Bible study, said to me by the pastor's wife, who I later found out was in a very dysfunctional marriage. And I shut up for years after that. I was like, oh my gosh, I should be fine. I shouldn't care whatever is going on in my marriage. I shouldn't even be bothered by it. Don't complain. Yep, don't complain for the sake of complaining, but do speak truth. It takes two. Now, that is said to somebody who complains about a relationship, typically marriage, and the person says it takes two, which means you're always at fault. Very bad to say to somebody who is in an abusive marriage, because a person is not at all responsible for abuse, narcissism, addiction. It's not always a problem that is because of two people. Yes, two people have a dynamic and no one's perfect. They have a part in how they respond or what their own issues are, but doesn't mean the problem that the person is talking to you about is caused by that person. It's under the blood. That means somebody's likely to say that to you when you're telling them how you were hurt by them or confronting them, and it's just under the blood. That means forget it. Jesus died for it. I don't have to talk about it anymore. We're done. You do still have to be accountable to God and to people, okay, in this world. It's under the blood, doesn't mean that you don't have to be accountable. Have more sex. That's saying you can't deprive your spouse because your spouse owns your body, right? Well, you know what? There are times when that is not the answer. And the person has to deal with the hurt and the pain that puts the wall up between you where you don't feel like you can have sex. So when somebody says that, that's spiritually bypassing the issues that they're bringing up, if that's their response always, without dealing with your problems. Change your heart. Yeah, heart change is good, but it's not always the solution or the fix to the problem. So if you have pain because of a relationship issue, saying change your heart does not mean that, doesn't necessarily speak to the problem if the issue isn't because of your heart, if the issue is because of what somebody else is doing. Respect your husband, parents, pastors, elder board, whoever it is. It's usually said when you're telling about something that one of those has done, and the person is saying you have to honor them. And honor them means to not speak badly of them usually, and to not like feel badly for, treat them like they're fine, and respect them over you, even though they're doing this thing. And again, the respect and the honoring doesn't mean that you can't have boundaries, can't speak the truth, or that you can't deal with the issues that you see, and you can't look at what's really going on. So those are just some examples. I could come up with more, but that's the list that I have. And I'm going to put a link in the description of this video. This is one of my devotions that I give out in my devotion subscription. It says spiritual bypassing is confusing and as a result produces cognitive dissonance. I did a video on cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when there's a split between what you know is right and what you're doing. And that's cognitively, you have a split. It's not like together. You're not living like you know you should. So in this case, spiritual bypassing, you're like, I know I hurt. I know I don't feel good. I know this is troubling to me, but I want to please God and I want to do what's right. So I'm going to bypass myself and I'm going to go along with the scripture. But in doing so, I know I'm like invalidating and denying myself and minimizing myself, and that is not good for me. I'm hurting myself. So spiritual bypassing actually produces cognitive dissonance in you. And it could also be, hey, I know I trust this person and I've got to listen to them, but it doesn't feel right to me. So that could produce that split in you also. Spiritual bypassing lacks compassion and concern, and it allows a person's responsibility to deal with their part in the relationship problem or to respond compassionately and empathetically with care to you. And instead, they get to just say something and walk off and feel like they actually have done that. So here's a couple of scriptures. James 2:14-17 totally talks about cognitive or spiritual bypassing. Says, what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. So basically, you got somebody coming to you and they're over here and they're telling you what their real problems are in this big bag of problems, this big emotional, like difficult situation. And you are saying, whoa, you're hungry, you need food. So what? Just go be well. Go be well. So look at that spiritually bypassing. Okay. Go in peace. Keep warm and well fed. How spiritually superior and self righteous that sounds. Go in peace. Let me pray for you, right? And just be good, be wonderful, be trust, be blessed. And instead, like, nope, nope, you missed it. You didn't do anything for that person. You should have given them clothes. You should have given them food. You should have dealt with their relationship problem. You should have encouraged them with words that actually helped. You should have cared about their pain, given them resources that would have actually dealt with their issues. That is the opposite. Matthew 23, 1 through 4. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So they're self-righteous, right? They're up there. They're in power. They're the religious leaders. And he says, so you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to help them move them. So basically, this person's over here hurting, and they just pile on more heaviness, and then they think that they're above them. And that's what you do when you spiritually bypass. Is a person's over here hurting, and you add on more shame, you add on more judgment, you add on more pain, and you don't do anything to help them. So I hope that this gives you insight. And again, get the devotional that you can print out, and you can print this out so that you can have it and you can refer to it and maybe get some better insight about how to recognize when you're being spiritually bypassed, and also to make sure that you don't spiritually bypass someone, because you might be doing it and not even realizing it. So, okay, thank you for watching. I would highly recommend you get my devotional. This is the 365 daily devotions for Christians in difficult relationships. Get a lot of wisdom out of this and a lot of information on how scripture can be applied to your relationships for yourself and for also dealing with other people. So, okay, God bless and thank you for watching.